Okay.
Yeah, well,
Except for the
Sort of.
overthinkers.
Except for the overthinkers.
Then we win the panel.
we're hedging our bets.
Okay. I'm going to send this around too, so you each have a broad outline. Well, did you notice any patterns? That's really the key question here.
Yeah.
Any patterns you saw? What?
Well, it's negative, positive, negative, positive.
Yeah, that's what we.
There's a basic alternation, and of course, so far what you had 1 to 11 was all negative. It was all your doom and your judgment. 2, 12, and 13 responds as salvation. 3, 1 to 12 gives you judgment. 4, 1 to 8 gives you, here's salvation. Now all of a sudden, we have doom, hope, 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 and so we're going along. So what do we make of this? Well, there's actually a key, and I hope to bring it out. I think you've seen it unwittingly, possibly, in what you've noticed. The structure helps us. There is a section of doom, and there is a section of hope, but each is a symmetrical structure, and you get clued into what it's about. You see the main point because it's featured at the outsides and the center of each, and then it intermixes between that the opposite, and you'll watch it happen twice. So the next section picks up. So we've just had this vision. Jerusalem's going to be destroyed, 3:12, 4, 1 to 8. God's going to come to Jerusalem and rule it. We'll throw the bums out. God will be king. Now, 4:9 to 5:15. The first section really will be through 5:1, as you will see. You've deduced this whether you realize it or not. And puts the problem out there. The problem is our inability, really, to face the situation that is before us. It is a carefully structured sequence in which God's people face the consequences of rebellion, of their sin against God. Doom is coming. The pictures of them going down in defeat ring this section, beginning and end, and are at the very center. But in between those are 2 glimpses of promise. God will rescue, and he will use his people and develop them in the process. So, let's look at these segments. You've got 4:9. We start with, well, what's this a picture of? Pretty clearly, it's defeat. Exile is coming. So here you've got the text, and we start off. Why do you now cry aloud? Have you no king? Has your counselor perished, that pain seizes you like that of a woman in labor? Writhe in agony, O daughter of Zion. Like a woman in labor, you must now leave the city to camp in the open field. You will go to Babylon. The first picture that confronts us, the king has failed, as has all advice. The image is of a woman in labor, so it's of deep pain. And they're going to be leaving the city, going away from all that's familiar in their surroundings. It depicts this long, forced march to a land of exile. Camping in the open field, you'll go to Babylon. It specifies where, in fact, they will be hauled off into exile more than a century later. Verse 10 again. You'll go to Babylon. There you will be rescued. There the Lord will redeem you out of the hand of your enemies. Okay, so it was very negative, then all of a sudden, whoop, we go to, this will be the site of your rescue. But it's also the site of your doom. You're going into exile, punishment for your sins. It is there that I will save you as well, God says. Redeem you out of the hand of your enemies. Rescue is coming. First, we endure the results of our sins, but beyond that, there is a bright hope coming that shines off in the distance. Your rescue will originate in the land you've been hauled off to. Verse 11, but now, so it puts it back in the present, here's what it's like today. Many nations are gathered against you. They say, let her be defiled. let our eyes gloat over Zion. Suddenly, we go back to the negative. They are surrounded and taunted. So if we start with defeat and exile coming, then it says God's plans are that he's going to rescue you, right, from exile. But then we revert our gaze to the hostility of the nations gathered against you. But, 12, another but. They do not know the thoughts of the Lord. They do not understand his plan. He who gathers them like sheaves to the threshing floor, rise and thresh, O daughter of Zion, for I will give you horns of iron, I will give you hoofs of bronze, and you will break to pieces many nations. You will devote their ill-gotten gains to the Lord, their wealth to the Lord of all the earth. God has plans. Disclosed to God's people here as reassurance and hope. Just as his plans in 4:10 at the end were to rescue them from exile, here he involves what he'll use them to do. This is what the hostile peoples will miss. There is deliverance. It is communicated as a command to God's people. Rise and thresh. They'll be involved in their own deliverance. God will use them. And yes, the image is rugged. It's a rough world, frankly. And remember, this is the 8th century BC, and there are people waiting to come. There are people from Iowa who are going to invade, and they will kill all the men in Champaign-Urbana and take the women and the children off to be their slaves in Iowa. So it's just a world that's really hard for us. We go, oh, this sounds so harsh. Well, understand that this is raw survival at many points when you're in the ancient world, and it is really rugged. So, God's plans, Zion will thresh the nations. 5:1, marshal your troops, O city of troops, for a siege is laid against us. They will strike Israel's ruler on the cheek with a rod. Oh my. Whoa. Suddenly we go back to the negative. We are surrounded in a siege, not a good place to be. A large army of people who want to kill us are camping around Champaign-Urbana. It's like, here we are stuck in the city, and if they get in, it will be ruin. The ruler is humiliated, so obviously things are not going well. Now, do you see what's happened? Do you see the pattern? Here's the outline. We start with the defeat that's coming, God's plans to rescue them from exile, the hostile nations surrounding them, God's plan to use them to deliver themselves, to thresh the nations, and then back to the picture of defeat, the siege and the humiliation. Do you see the symmetry? We go A, B, C, B, A, basically. We come in one way, but you notice what hits you first, and what you're left with at the end, and what's in the center. This is the section of doom, only it's done something. Micah has done something very different in the way he has presented his oracle. He has given you a glimpse. As he says that everything is going to go down the drain, he also says there's hope. And so the light shines through even in the very dark picture of what happens. Well, what does it say in this section of doom is the sin?
To me, is they kept God out of it and they're trying to do it themselves.
Okay, that's very true. Where does it say that?
Where he says, but you do not know the thoughts of the Lord.
Okay.
They do not understand his plan. They're doing it their way.
And of course, who is that who doesn't know the thoughts of the Lord?
They're the people of Israel, or Judah.
Well,
in 11 it says many nations.
many nations are gathered against you. They say, let her be defiled, but they do not know the thoughts of the Lord. They do not understand his plan. So actually, you're right. The people of Israel have left God out, and they don't understand his plans. What I'm asking is a very basic observation question with this passage. You're thinking beyond me. You're like Leonardo da Vinci. You're ahead of your time here. What does it say in the passage is the sin? 1 and 2, it said it's what you guys are doing with the land. It's how you're defrauding the little people. 3, it said you leaders are just all corrupt. Now, in the 3rd section of doom,
It's greed, yeah.
what does it say? Does it say anything about what their sin is? Not really. Unusually here, we've had 2 segments so far where he confronts the sin and says, this is what you're doing. This time, he assumes it. You've already heard 1, 2, and 3. You know what's going on in the culture. So you know that there's people who are working with power, bribing the courts and the officials so that they can buy your land and then rent it back to you. So that your bare survival existence has become even more sparing. The religious leaders are collaborating. The rich keep increasing, and the poor are more and more hobbled and unable to get out of this situation. He does not specify the sin, but he's confronted it repeatedly in 1, 2 to 4, 8. So you know the cracks in the society's walls already. It depicts then in this section of doom where we're going to end up. Defeat is coming. Your ruler will fail you. Your ruler will be humiliated. You'll go into exile. And he reveals this time it's going to be to Babylon. Very specific. He says you're going to be carted off. And remember, this is the ancient world. We don't get on jets and fly quickly to different places. Babylon is hundreds of miles away, and they know that this is an exile. This will mean an abject, humiliating, and humiliated march of hundreds of miles, barely surviving with your captors who don't care and torment you. This is not a pleasant prospect. But the structure, with the defeat on the outsides and the hostile taunting at the center, clue you in that this is the section of doom. But in between, you get this little glimpse of reassurance that the loss and pain is not the final word. What does that do? Even as you hear the proclaiming of judgment, you know your sin is serious. They haven't been obeying, and they reap the results. Does this intersect our lives in any way? Yeah. Even very broadly, as a Christian culture, we tend to minimize sin. We tend to say, oh, hey, I'll say, I'm sorry, Jesus, please forgive me, and then I'm off the hook. Clearly, how I interact with other people reflects God or it doesn't. And it's a big issue. It's very serious if it does not. God really is concerned about that. So much so that in a culture that falls apart here because the people have disregarded covenant and forgotten about God, we can come and hear God say, and that'll be it. I will completely leave nothing here. All your building, all your wealth, all your property holdings, they will disappear. You won't have them anymore. So what do you get? Even though he doesn't specify the sin, in a sense, that makes this come off as a confrontation of our disobedience in general. Take it in your life, my life, and apply it anywhere, because I suspect every one of us in this room has a tendency to want to minimize our rebellion against God, even to say rebellion. I don't rebel. I go to church. I'm a Christian. No, I rebel. And I do things that I know are contrary to who God is and what he's like, and I justify it. I rationalize it very glibly and say, oh, Jesus, I'm really sorry, forgive me. And figure now I'm off the hook. Not that forgiveness isn't real. It is. Salvation is real, forgiveness is real, but consequences are real too. Mm-hmm. And you bear those in life. Yes, I am saved because of Jesus' work on the cross, but I still can choose wrong, and I'll bear the consequences. One of Satan's great lies is to tell me there's no consequences. Don't worry about it. You can do this and nothing will happen. No, things will happen. Many people who were firm believers in the Lord were marched off into exile, whether they were, even if they were small landholders who'd been taken advantage of, they still suffered consequences of a general rejection in society. So this is a motivation to address the sin in my life and around me in society. There are consequences, and there's hope for better if I obey. The two little glimpses, the light shining through. So 4:9 to 5:1 gives us the problem. In the case of the Judahites, it's defeat. It is their inability on their own. Part 2 gives us the resolution, and it is that God is going to lead his people on to victory. Okay, the problem is portrayed in terms of total defeat. It's military, it's the ancient world, they're losing, they're being carried off into captivity, their king is disgraced. The answer is, God will bring victory. So see how this works. There is a change when we come to 5:2. There is assurance and there are promises. As you see in your list of positive and negative, the symmetrical ordering continues with a brand new symmetry, but it uses bigger blocks and the tone turns to mostly positive promise. There's still the intermixing the negative of threat and the consequences. So we start with our A, God's solution, a divine leader, 5:2 to 5a. Let's hand this out too. This is sort of a smaller version outline that just gives you the outline in one page. So you've got it all there, and you can see the symmetries as they're working. So let's look, okay, if 6:8 is the most quoted verse in Micah, 5:2 is the second most quoted verse because it gets on Christmas cards all over the place. But you, Bethlehem Ephrathah, though you are small among the clans of Judah, out of you will come for me one who will be ruler over Israel, whose origins are from of old, from ancient times. Well, what's the resolution? What's the solution? The solution is a divine leader. We start with the origins of this leader. From a town we know, and out of the mists of the distant past. A very interesting combination here. God promises the advent of a new leader, a powerful king in the line of David. It identifies that this singular character will rule, one who will be ruler over Israel. It pinpoints his origin place. It's Bethlehem in Judah, which of course they recognize. What is Bethlehem best known for in the 8th century BC? It's the hometown of King David from 2 centuries before. We know it too. We know it's David's hometown, and we also know it's Jesus' birthplace later on. So it's a town we all know. Whether in the 8th century or the 21st century AD, we know Bethlehem. So it's recognizable right away, and it's connected with royalty. Though you are small among the clans of Judah, though you are a little tiny village of no account, out of you will come for me one who will be ruler over Israel. So you're immediately linked in with David. Then it mysteriously describes the origins not just geographically, but temporally, whose origins are from of old, from ancient times. This person seems to be a rescuer who goes beyond human bounds. Doesn't give you much definition. We read it and go, Jesus. But if it's the 8th century BC, you read it and go, huh? Because it's mysterious. And as it has been the case in the Old Testament, God continues to give glimpses of Messiah and salvation. And he keeps filling in the picture bit by bit. But we're still not You can't ask somebody in the 8th century, tell me about Jesus. They know bits and pieces that have been revealed in Scripture, in the prophets, up to this point. Here's another bit. This person's going to have a Davidic line, because David's 2 centuries in the past, so there's another Davidic king coming. But the origins of this person are in the distant past. How could that be? The pre-existence of Christ foreshadowed in the Scriptures, but not really spelled out or explained in any way they would know what it means. So he seems more than human. The time, therefore, Israel will be abandoned until the time when she who is in labor gives birth, and the rest of his brothers return to join the Israelites. It anticipates a period of abandonment. Oh, here we are in the section of hope, and we're interweaving doom. We're going to get there, but you're going to be abandoned. That's not very promising. Until the time when she who is in labor gives birth. Oh, picks up that image from chapter 4 of the woman in labor. That points to a birth, and that brings joy. There's going to be resolution and release, but at the same time it evokes the image of intense pain. The feeling is not entirely clear here. What do we get? But it looks beyond that to a day when the people will be reunified. It will not be Judah cowering by itself alone up in the hills, nor will it be Israel, the northern kingdom, snuffed out and carried off to Assyria. Instead, they'll be joined back together, and the people of God will be whole and complete. They will be all God intended for them to be. Well, who is this? Verse 4 gives us a key to his identity. He is the shepherd who brings security. He will stand and shepherd his flock in the strength of the Lord, in the majesty of the name of the Lord his God, and they will live securely, for then his greatness will reach to the ends of the earth. Whoever this is will be a shepherd, only not a shepherd off in a field with 112 sheep. This is a shepherd with worldwide impact. His greatness reaches to the ends of the earth. Okay. Again, here we are in the Old Testament. We're picking up on images we already are familiar with. Psalm 23. God is a shepherd. The Lord is my shepherd. Okay, so this is a quality of Yahweh God himself. The shepherd, of course, is chosen to evoke God's care, his protection, his provision, his guidance for his people. But in the Near East, around Israel, the image of the shepherd is very commonly used to describe the role of a king. The king is to be a shepherd to his people. The king takes care of, provides for, protects, leads the people who are his. It's a royal duty to care for your people as if they are a flock. The psalm has already identified this metaphor with God's relationship for us, with us. It suggests again the closeness of the